A figure in the dark. Ambus and Ferron both stood outside the checkpoint. Everett's district splayed out before them. People milled about at shop windows and travelled through the big main street in small hordes, overloaded with bags and boxes.
"Wow, this is incredible,"
Ferron spoke, in awe of the spectacle before them, whereas Ambus looked on spitefully at the district. The road ahead gleamed with cleanliness, leading up to a line of gilt shops that seemed to never end, cutting straight through the district to the other side. In the centre, a palace stood, presiding over the entire area. Scaffoldings surrounded the building, and great hoists lifted golden gargoyles and filigreed artworks onto the roof and outer walls of the palace. A moat of liquid silver surrounded the great building, crossed by walkways at each entrance gate, protected by a fence of gold to stop passers-by falling into the liquid.
"How do they do that? The melting point of silver is quite high, and for such a great amount to be liquidated at once,"
Ferron asked in mixed confusion and admiration. Hidden underneath is a bed of ignis crystals. They continuously heat the metal, making it molten. Then above, if you can see, far off in the distance, there are street lamps, placed every few feet. They contain air crystals that absorb the gases, so it doesn't poison the city. And below the air crystals, they hung lux crystals that illuminate the walls of the palace, making it look even better. Sometimes they even perform shows during the night, involving shadows dancing across the walls. Of course, you have to pay to see them. Ambus answered, with a bored tone. Come, you can explore more tomorrow. For now we need to move. It's starting to get late into the night. Ferron begrudgingly agreed, but continued asking questions as they walked.
"How did they even get that many crystals from the primal aspects? Even Arbus's place doesn't contain more than 2 for each one. Everett's champions must..."
Before he could finish, Ambus dragged him into the side of an alley that resided just off the checkpoint and pinned him against the wall of a nearby building by his throat, her pain from before seemingly not affecting her. Will you shut up? Are you stupid, or you just want to tell everyone here about what we live? You own Greed's home turf. Stop bloody giving away everything we own to anyone who is listening. She released him, and he doubled over, coughing loudly.
"What the hell is your problem?"
Ferron stammered, between wheezing coughs as his lungs attempted to obtain fresh air. He looked over to Ambus, who was clutching the arm she had used to pin him. She was clenching it so tightly that her nails had cut into her skin, her breathing becoming ragged. Look, Ferron, this entire district is designed to learn about everything you own, and then remove you of those possessions. That goes the same for information. Everett has no issue with sending out his servants to steal things he wants, and has learnt about from idiots who speak about it openly in the streets. She paused, clenching her teeth as she tried to ignore the pain that was lancing up her arm. We're here to try and gain help from him, with the promise that he and the others will get something worthwhile. Let's try to make sure that the thing he gets is not our valley. Yes? Ferron nodded glumly.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't think,"
he replied, while Ambus slowly relaxed her arm as the pain started to lessen. Well, just make sure you think from now on. I don't expect you to know how to approach this place. You come from a town where everything was fair business. All you've ever known is how to ply your trade well and make a living wage from it. Here, it's nothing like that. Underhand business practices and backstabbing is normal, even encouraged. I understand your attraction to new cultures, but for the love of sanctity, this is not the time or place to get involved in it. She stood and looked further down the alley. Come on, I think from here we can get to an inn I know. She started walking away, not waiting for Ferron, trusting him to follow behind. They proceeded through the alley slowly and carefully. A network of other routes split off from it, leading to the backs of shops or warehouses and other buildings that they couldn't discern.
"This is so different from the main street,"
Ferron commented, to which Ambus cracked a smile. Of course, it's all a front. You enter his district, and the first thing you see in these beautiful shops, leading all the way to this amazing palace. Each shopfront containing something different and interesting, while behind the shops lies this maze of alleys and warehouses where people live in squalor. As Ambus spoke, they passed a mound of rags that suddenly shifted, and from within a hand snatched at Ferron's belt, attempting to grab something of worth. Luckily, he jumped back just in time, and the arm quickly disappeared back into the heap.
"Jeez, what was that?"
Ferron asked, eyeing the pile. Someone trying to survive? Ambus replied, before moving on. Keep walking, and they won't bother you again. Just be wary. Nothing is what it seems here. Ferron couldn't help but stare at everything from then on. The cold, stained walls, coloured black from neglect, only made him feel like the alley was closing in on him. The acrid smell of urine permeating pungently through the alleyway made him cover his mouth even as his eyes began to water in response to it. Shapes started to become more apparent, a shadow moving in the corner of his sight, making him turn to find nothing there. He attempted to hurry along, but stopped as Ambus held out a hand, placing it against his chest to stop him.
Ambus? What? Shh!
Don't move a muscle, she whispered through gritted teeth. Ahead, a clicking noise echoed down the alley's walls, and suddenly a shout sounded. "No! I'll get it tomorrow, I swear!" A man suddenly burst from the back of the building. "Move, now! Down here behind these crates!" Ambus quickly pushed Farron down behind a stack of tall crates, and began peering through the cracks between them.
"What's going on?"
Farron whispered, but Ambus quietly shushed him, so he crouched up slightly and looked through another crack between the crates. A dark figure loomed over the man that had crashed out of the building, easily reaching 7 feet in height. It wore a dark cloak with a hood, obscuring its face from anyone but who it looked at. Thick, strong legs supported a gangly frame below the cloak. As it stepped out from behind the door, a strange appendage whipped around behind it, extending from the back of its waist. The clicking noise sounded again, abrupt and distracting as the man tried to reason with the figure. "I swear, Everett, we'll have it all tomorrow. I just need time. Some more time, please." Farron stifled a gasp in surprise as an arm shot out from the thing's cloak and grabbed the man by his throat, lifting him easily into the air. The arm was covered in leathery light brown skin, almost sand-coloured and armoured with thick scales. The cloaked figure's rear appendage whipped again, eliciting the clicking noise as it changed direction. Then it spoke.
Everett doesn't want what you owe him. It is too late for you to pay back your debt.
No, I'll get it for him tonight, I swear. Tonight, I'll do it tonight. The man begged, but the thing made a long, low hiss, then continued speaking.
No, you will pay it now.
The whipping appendage swiftly changed direction and started to rattle. It flew forward with a flash of wicked iron and stabbed the man in the chest. As it pierced him, a sound like a gust of wind emanated from the blade, as the silver form seemed to be sucked out of his torso and into the metal. The figure pulled the strange knife from their target's chest, then dropped him on the floor. The appendage it had used to kill him lifted up to its head, and a long tongue slithered out and licked the blade clean of his blood.
"What is that thing?"
Farron asked, horrified, but Ambus just stared at it, not answering. As Ambus crouched, frozen, the figure suddenly looked up and down the alleyway, sniffing, attempting to smell something on the air, then turned and disappeared back into the building, closing the door behind it silently, almost gracefully.
"Ambus! Ambus! Hey!"
Farron shook her, breaking her enraptured state. She licked her dry lips and swallowed. She didn't realize she had been holding her breath.
"Ambus, what was it?"
Farron asked, and she shakily answered. A debt collector. I've never seen them kill someone, nor do I expect to find one here."
"Well, that's obvious enough. I mean, what was it? Don't tell me that thing was human."
She shook her head slowly. "No, definitely not human. We need to move. I'll talk on the way." She stood and hastily moved forward, quietly stepped past the body, and continued down the alleyway, with Farron close behind. They had been walking in silence for about 20 minutes when Ambus came to a stop at the end of the alleyway they had moved down. Ahead, an open dirt area lay before them, a half-broken fountain residing in its centre, with a decrepit building behind. Above, the moon soared high in the sky, sluggishly moving towards the west.
"Ambus, have some answers now,"
Farron asked, impatience steadily growing within him at her cold attitude and reluctance to answer his questions. She sighed and carefully rested against the wall. "Fine. We have time, and I want to see if anyone enters this building. What do you want to know?"
"Well, what was that thing?"
he asked. "A debt collector, as I said. Everett employs lizard people to act as his muscle. They are deadly, quick, quiet, and can hunt someone down through scent alone extremely well."
"You've got to be kidding. Lizard people? These are myths, aren't they?"
"Did that thing look like a myth to you?" Ambus snapped. "They're not myths, and they're not to be messed with. I'm surprised we're alive. Anyone who witnesses them killing someone is also killed. You are not allowed to see them operate in any deadly way." Farron looked confused.
Then why aren't we dead? Didn't it know we were there?
It knew. It just couldn't find us. Probably figured we had run and so didn't see what we did. Didn't you notice it sniffing the air? It smelt us. The only reason we're alive now is probably the smell of urine in that alley. Master's enough. A large bell suddenly sounded over the city, drowning out anything within earshot.
What's that?
Farron asked, nervous. That is a warning bell. Come on, we need to get inside. They began approaching the building, but as they moved off, a stooped man moved in front of them. He reeked.
Hello there. Would you like some cog?
He almost choked up on the words. His eyes seemed far off, barely with him in reality, and he continuously scratched at his patchy skin. Rags covered his body wherever they could. He was gaunt and pale, with almost no teeth in his mouth. Amber's edged around him, indicating Farron to follow suit. No, she replied.
Oh, come on. Not just one little taste.
The stranger pulled out 2 small vials, filled with a pinkish liquid, mixed with a brownish substance.
Not even one,
he continued. Farron looked over to find Ambus eyeing the vials, almost hungrily, but then she quickly turned away. No, she replied again, then briskly walked towards the building, almost towing Farron behind her.
Your loss.
The stranger coughed the words out behind them, then disappeared into the alleyway they had exited.
What was that? What did he offer?
Farron asked, but quickly silenced himself at the look Ambus gave him. Her eyes were like ice-cold steel. Nothing. Come on, we need a room. She almost ran up the steps, and then opened the door to the building, disappearing inside. Farron gingerly closed the dilapidated door behind him, and turned to find Ambus standing at a counter, being served by an old woman. "One room, please," Ambus asked with a smile, then handed the old woman some coins. Looking around, Farron saw that the wood was starting to rot in the building. In one corner, a bedraggled woman sat on the floor, rocking her knees and muttering to herself. An empty vial lay on the floor next to her, similar to the ones the stranger outside had offered.
"Number 12.
An aged, croaking voice answered Ambus's request, as the old lady handed Ambus the key to the room she had procured. "Thank you," she responded, and signaled for Farron to follow her upstairs. He carefully walked over, avoiding the rocking woman as much as possible, and followed Ambus up the stairs. They turned left at the top. A creaking hallway met them, dimly lit by one precariously hanging oil lamp. Ambus quickly moved down the hallway and found the room that the key fitted. Upon the door, a 1 and 2 had been nailed onto it. However, the 2 hung by one nail sideways. She quickly opened the door and hurried inside. Farron started to follow, but noticed something on the doorframe. 4 scratch marks had been left by the door handle. He peeked inside and started to speak.
Ambus, are you...
He paused as a long hiss sounded in the dark room. Ambus stood stock still in the center, staring at a table by the window that was bathed in moonlight. Sat beside it was a hooded figure, leisurely sipping from a roughly made wooden cup before placing it down and speaking from a mouth covered light brown within the shadowed cowl.
So, Ambus,